Cameras rolling. Nicht.
Perfect. Well, first of all, the obvious question, how are True Blood fans actually going to react when they see the Northman ripping someone's throat open and howling like a wolf?
I don't know how they will react, but the genesis of this movie was kind of connected to True Blood, because I've nurtured a dream of one day making a Viking movie since I was a young boy. But about 10 years ago on True Blood, we shot a flashback to when my character was human, and it was during the Viking Age. So we shot a couple of scenes in the States, but in Swedish, and they took place in Sweden when my character was a Viking. And I think those days were it kind of awakened something in me where I was, I had the best time. I loved it. And then I started thinking, I've never seen an accurate depiction of the Viking Age. There hadn't been a big scale Viking movie, as far as I know, ever made. So then that's how it kind of started, where I was like, again, it was 10 years ago. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could put together a team and then make a great, big, epic Viking movie? But then it wasn't until 5 years later when I met Robert Eggers that it actually took off, and then what eventually became the Northman started to kind of come together. I wanted it to be big and epic and just visually impactful. But I also want, like, the old Icelandic sagas are quite contained. It's often around a farm. It's often around family drama. It's about revenge. So I wanted it to be that as well. I didn't want it to be two Viking armies just fighting. It had to be like a personal story. And I was trying to figure out what that would be. And then I met with Rob about something completely different. And we hit it off, had a great time, was having lunch and talking, and somehow we started talking about Vikings. I don't remember how, and then I mentioned that, like, I've had this dream of one day making a Viking movie, and I'm trying to figure out what it is, what the story is, and then it turned out that Rob was a huge fan of Norse mythology, of the Viking Age. So we ended up spending that lunch talking about Vikings and not the project we were supposed to talk about. And then after that, Lars Knudsen, my producing partner, whom I teamed up with, we reached out to Rob and asked, like, well, would you be interested in coming on board and then trying to actually make this happen? And that's how our journey started. Rob shoots on film, not digital. And one camera only. Most big action movies are shot with multiple cameras, and there are no cuts in almost any of the scenes. I have the long scene with my mother, played by Nicole Kidman, and I think and it's just in her chamber, so in her bedroom, and that's a scene with no action. But in that scene, there's coverage, but all the the long action sequences where you have to go into kind of an animalistic state, and it's just berserker mode, basically. They're shot with one camera, one continuous shot. And that was an incredible challenge because movies are not made that way. It's almost all action movies have plenty of cuts, and if something in a big fight scene isn't perfect, it's fine because you have different angles, and you can do cuts, and you can chop, and you can tighten it. But this was, what you have that's it. You can't really do anything with it. You can't tweak it or change it. So we have to do it over and over and over again. And again, when we do it over and over again, we have to start from the beginning. So, for example, with the raid of the village in the beginning of the movie, we had to go back, put on the wolf pelt, and then hide, and then do the whole thing and ascend the wall. And then it was very, very challenging. And we also had to find that rhythm because Rob, in both The Witch and The Lighthouse, there are no they're very small movies in terms of scale, in terms of budget. This was the first time Rob had a big budget movie, a big action movie. So to find that rhythm was, it took a while. But it was also an incredible challenge because, again, it was a way of working that I was unfamiliar with. But the flip side of it is when you finally get that one take and it works and all the pieces come together, it's incredible. It's incredible. It feels like winning the World Cup. Not that I've ever won the World Cup, but like it's, again, on a normal movie, you don't get that rush of adrenaline when they call, great, that looks, moving on. Because again, like the stakes aren't that high. When you've done a 4-minute fight scene 30 times and there's something in the background wasn't perfect, you have to go again and you go again. And then when Rob calls like cut and it's like that one was perfect, you watch it and it actually works. It's euphoric. Like it's an amazing feeling. It was tough. I worked with a friend of mine, Magnus. We worked together on Tarzan, so we know each other very well, which helped that we had long experience of working, training together, and he put together the diet, so he also knew how my body would respond to certain things, and so that gave us a bit of a head start. But then it was basically 5 months of strict diet and training to get ready. But then those 5 months became 10 months because we were supposed to start in March of 2020, and then 5 days before principal photography, the pandemic hit and we had to shut down. But I couldn't stop training and go back and just eating chips and drinking beer, obviously, because we didn't know how long we would postpone the movie. So we were kind of in a standby mode while they were figuring out the COVID protocols. So for another 5 months, I was training and just trying to be ready for when they said, like, all right, now we go. So it was a long process, but also exciting because it was a transformation that I hadn't really done before. It was quite different from Tarzan. It depends how you see it. Hamlet is a berserker, but he's an abandoned little boy in the body of a berserker. So there's a vulnerability there and a fragility that I find quite beautiful. And then he's dead set on revenge. And there's a tragic element to that. And without giving away the end, it could be interpreted as maybe did he succeed or did he not? That's the question in a way. But yes, to answer your question, it could be argued that it's a wasted opportunity to go down that dark path. Yeah. My great-grandfather built a house on Öland, which is one of the 2 Swedish islands in the Baltic, in the southern Baltic, or southern part of Sweden. And on Öland, I grew up spending every summer there, and they have close to 200 massive rune stones with inscriptions from Viking expeditions to faraway places. And I just remember from being a little child, and my grandfather would explain the inscriptions to me, and the idea of someone 1,000 years ago venturing into the unknown, because at the time it was like going to a different planet. You have no idea what's out there beyond the horizon. Was just so exciting to me, and the stories that he told me about these Vikings and what they went through out there, and the Norse mythology behind it, their relationship to Mother Nature, how alive that was and how real it was, and And I was just fascinated by that because it's almost like the whole mythology was written by someone on mushrooms, basically.